Rick.
Hey, Keith Jones. Is that an ASU or is that? Yeah, yeah, it is
That's
ASU.
ASU, man. Yeah.
Sometimes you wear those Tennessee hats, and then I wonder, what
See.
the hell,
Yeah.
buddy? Come on, you're in the West now, not in the
I
South anymore.
know. I know. Those are the roots of childhood, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we'd do a show called Go Beyond Normal. And I'll start it off and then I want you to pick it up from there. I've listened to whether it's Eckhart Tolle or Michael Singer, and they talk about, you know, the normal behavior. They describe it as insane when they first started to to expound on the subject. And what they say is about, complaining, judging, the ego defining how you interact with life or how you perceive things, narratives that become your identity. All these things that people do, resistance to things that are, that this is the way it is, but you still resist internally to it. He's like, all of that is like insane behavior, but it's called normal in the world because that's what most people do. They live their lives in those default settings, And so what's interesting is when you see somebody who's incredibly kind or incredibly poised and peaceful in a stressful situation or what other people might call a stressful situation, you're like, oh my God, you're so different. No, this is what normal behavior looks like, is what this person is doing. They're not extraordinary. Like they're just doing what normal behavior is doing. Everybody else, including myself before the practice, that would be worked up and complaining and a situation has passed and it's not in this present moment, but you're still carrying it into the present moment. That's abnormal behavior, but we've called it normal behavior. Most recently, there was obviously the Oscar situation, right? And old Keith would have been like, oh my God, I can't believe this would happen. I've been looking at it 24/7, still trying to track the story. And this guy should be thrown in jail and all that stuff. That's normal behavior, right? No, man, I heard about it. I was like, some people asked me what you think. I was like, you know what? I think this offers an opportunity to have a great civil dialogue about this. Both parties can come together and apologize for it, create a bigger story. One of the people could be like, hey, listen, there is this disease that's affecting, a significant part of our society. Like, I want to learn more of it so I can be an advocate and proponent to and lead with compassion and empathy with people that are going through this. The other person could be like, hey, listen, my ego got the best of me. I was reactive instead of responsive. Here's what the cost of that behavior is. I want to have a dialogue about how not to allow that to happen, how to really practice being rooted in the present moment. Like, there's a bigger story here to me that opens it up. That to me is normal behavior, is approaching it from that way. It's like, how can we create an opportunity that is to have civil discourse about this that helps us become kinder to each other and to give people grace when they do make these mistakes instead of like off with their heads. No, no, we don't have to go that route. And so, but the other is normal behavior. I mean, the normal behavior is there's an enemy here and we're not leaving until somebody pays a price for this, and then that takes over you for the next 5 days. So it is a snapshot in time. It takes place on television, and they were talking about it for a week. Really? Like, that's how I want to spend my time? That's one way to do it.
One way to do it. That's right.
Or you can go beyond normal. Go beyond normal. And that's not to say that actions don't have consequences. They do. But that particular action had nothing to do with me, other than me, maybe when I'm asked to say, maybe there's an opportunity here for presence. Maybe there's an opportunity here for expanding consciousness. Are we taking that opportunity? Or are we, at the effect of our default settings and there just comes a lot of judgment and right and wrong here? That's one way to do it. I guess that's normal behavior. So Rick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Keith. The idea of what is normal being actually abnormal and self-destructive in some ways is true. And one of the ways I think we can get away from thinking like that, or the normal kind of behavior and the normal reaction is with meditation. And the reason I say that is because there's a time in meditation when all of that falls away. One of the things that you're trying to do in meditation is not to make your mind blank, although that's a wonderful side effect if you can do it, is just to keep pushing away anything that gets in the way of that moment. And the practice becomes something about just you and bare reality. And there's nothing there except like a floating. You are in essence in a place that is between a thought. And the thoughts are the things that cause you to have opinions, which then cause you to feel either good or bad. The ego then takes a position and creates a whole narrative for you that can be destructive, or it can be time consuming, or it can be nagging, cause of anxiety, cause of fear. So what I'm getting at is the idea that one of the ways we can go beyond normal is just by getting in touch with the present moment through meditation, being in the gap between the thoughts. Mm-hmm. And when you're in that place, you have an experience of not having any ego, and you have an experience of not having any need to have an opinion or be right. And I think the more that we're able to do that, the more we're able to take on that kind of approach that you just talked about, where it's an opportunity for dialogue. You don't feel personally insulted, or you don't feel the need to have to convince other people about your position. So I guess meditation for me, along with exercise, is the two things that get you away from the quote normal kind of way of spiraling down into arguing about whatever shows up in your life. Being present is huge, and it's very, very difficult in this culture. It's so fast paced. And there's so many opportunities to have unmet expectations that we need something else to cope. And that those coping things, I think, are meditation and exercise.
Oh, Rick, I think those are two wonderful and effective methods to really live conscious, which you and I think are what's normal. Like we worked on that being our normal, as well as a lot of people that listen to the podcast or on a path of being conscious. That's the normal. I'll just close with this and then see if you have any other thoughts about it, which is one of the things that I did to create a different normal than what most of society thinks is normal, is that I noticed how much I complained. I noticed it. And so I started to say to myself, like, okay, one, what would life be like if I didn't complain? Because I remember like life being really nice when I wasn't complaining. But during that period, it's because there was nothing externally bothering me. Everything was meeting my expectations in that moment, right? Or exceeding them. But that's a hard way to live when your source of happiness is dependent on something beyond your control. Mm-hmm. So when life shows up to where it's not that way, which is most of the way that life shows up, if you have preferences and you have expectations, then you suffer a lot and you cause other suffering. And that's when judgments about situations and everything else come into play. I mean, you hit it right on the head, unmet expectations. So what I started to do is what Eckhart Tolle said when the guru asked him, like, how do you stay so, and a guru was asked, how do you stay so peaceful? Like, what's the secret? And he says, I don't mind what happens.
Right. That's right.
I don't mind what happens. It rains, it snows, it doesn't rain, it doesn't snow. It's the wedding. Well, the wedding, it's got to be all sunshine, does it? So you mean that this wedding will be an absolute flop and failure, and the worst possible, it will be a tragedy if it rains on wedding day. Okay, that's one way to have your wedding.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, that's normal behavior to be upset, right?
Yeah.
If you don't pass a test or you don't get a promotion, are you telling me if you don't get this promotion, the world is over for you? Okay, that's normal behavior to make those kind of declarations, whether they're spoken or unspoken, that's the way everything's going to do. So I started saying to myself that I want to practice when something doesn't line up with an expectation that I have, that I will not complain about it. And you start with something small.
Yeah.
Like you get there and you're a vegan, right? And you get there and all they got is pork shoulders. That's all they got. All they got is ribs. then and how do you not lose it? Because how do you mean? Like, how you gonna have this event with all these and you don't consider that people are vegetarian? No, you don't complain about that. I mean, you either eat the ribs or you don't eat the ribs, but you
Yeah.
have no complaint about how it's supposed to be. And the same thing, not only complaining, but you are judging people. Like a situation is going to have, and I will have no comment on it. So it's something small, like no comment. And then it feels hard at first because that's all you've been doing. You've been practicing at that, like you're an expert at judging, expert at it, resisting change. You're great at it. You master that, but that only causes you suffering and other people suffering. Why don't you master not being bothered when somebody says things have to change or there's a change? Practice acceptance. Like make that your normal. And with that comes, so much peace. Rick, I experience so much peace now that I am not acting like I used to when that was normal behavior. Oh my God, it's amazing. And you feel the same way.
Yeah, definitely, Keith. The idea that whatever happens is okay, very profound, very tough, very profound. That's the road that comes from practicing detachment. In other words, it's not an excuse for not acting. It's act, do your best, try your hardest, save the patient, win the case, teach the kid, whatever your career calls for. But then once you make that effort, you got to let it go. You have to detach from outcome.
Yes.
So you lose the case, the patient dies, God forbid. That's detaching from outcome that's required. You have to get past that in order to continue. So I think in our personal lives, the expectations that we have are the real problem. We need to look at them. Do I need to be happy only when things are going my way? Because if you're choosing that path, you're going to suffer your whole life because things are not likely to go your way all the time, and even most of the time. So I think the guru idea that you accept what you can change or what you can't change, the guru who's saying, I don't really mind what's happening, is detaching from that. My ego is not involved in that outcome. I've worked my butt off to get a result that I think is appropriate, but I'm going to detach from outcome. I think that's very healthy. The idea that you don't have an opinion about outcome, very, very difficult in this culture. Very difficult. I remember there was a famous celebrity who lost a parent, and he was a Buddhist. And the press was talking about how difficult it must have been for him. And the guy said, I have so much love and respect for my parents, but they're gone. And no tears, that just changed the subject. Now, that is an example of not grief as far as the Western culture is concerned. But for him, it was an observation of what is true. I can't affect what happened. I am so disappointed that this has happened. But on the other hand, it's happened, and I have to get past it. Anyway, the point of it is that if you accept what is, you suffer less. And if you accept what is in your heart to know that you can't change it, and you detach from it, there is inner peace.
100%. Rick, thank you so much, man. I'm so happy to be on this path with you of going beyond normal. Man, it's freeing, man. It's so liberating.
You're a wonderful example, Keith, of all of these things that we talk about. I just rather sit here and listen to you talk than say anything myself, because you got it all, man.
No. I'm still working. I love you, man.
I love you. Adios.
Adios.